Congressman Tim Burchett, a Republican representative from Tennessee, a member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee as well. Congressman, great to have you back on BBC News. I want to start with what this report says. It says it is reasonable to assess that U.S. weapons have been used by Israeli forces since October 7th in instances inconsistent with its international humanitarian law obligations. What's your reaction to that?
Well, they are weapons, ma'am, and you have to realize that the Israelis were attacked first, and they're going after terrorists. And it is a horrible, horrible thing when civilians are hurt. But you got to also realize that Hamas is putting those civilians in that place, in the place of terror and destruction, and that's where we're at. I think it's 6 of one and half a dozen of the other, as they say. I don't think it's going to put anybody in a good light or anybody so far in a bad light. I think it's just pretty much what it is, and I think we should let the Israelis continue to do what they're doing. You know, we allocated several $1 billion for them, and then we sent several $1 billion into Gaza for aid. And what happened in that first shipment, the UN was hijacked, obviously, by Hamas or one of the other groups. So you know, it is war, and it is a mess.
Understood. But what obligation does Israel have here to protect civilians? Because we've spoken to multiple aid organizations on the ground, including UNICEF, the World Food Program. Many of them are saying Israel is not compliant. And there's also been letters from Democratic lawmakers, as you know, who say there is sufficient evidence that Israel's restrictions on aid in particular violate U.S. law.
Well, I would remind my Democrat colleagues they voted for that aid. I did not vote for that aid, but they did. And the reason that they voted for that aid is because they got money that was supposed to go into Gaza for aid, and it didn't get there. Man, this is a political deal, 100%. We're in an election year. You have a president President Biden is behind President Trump in most every national poll, and he's trying to split the baby, so to speak. Sorry, my dogs are barking.
So you think this report is essentially a political deal because it's trying to come down on both sides of the issue?
Yes, ma'am, I do, and it allows the president some cover. He can say, "Oh, we're slapping your hand," but on the other side, he's saying, "You go ahead and do it." So I do. I believe it is, as I said, 6 of one, half a dozen the other, and it goes right down the middle, and it allows the president to save face, and that's what it does.
It doesn't allow a lot of cover in the meantime on the ground for the people who are in Gaza. We spoke to UNICEF earlier this week, and they told us there are 600,000 children in difficult conditions in Rafah right now, where the Israelis want to go in. They say they have to go in. So, again, I have to ask what you think Israel's obligation is here in carrying out its operation.
Well, for their first obligation is, you have to remember, this is one of the largest destructions of Jewish people since the Holocaust, and I believe their obligation is to take care of Hamas and eliminate them from the face of the earth. And so I believe that's what they're going to do. And unfortunately, you're seeing Hamas is keeping civilians in those areas. They do this every time. The United Nations is what they woefully lack anything or any confidence from me and a lot of my colleagues, just because they are clearly on the side of Hamas, and they have been. They have members that have been associated with them, and you know, I'm one of those that thinks we need to cut our aid off to the United Nations and organizations like them. And if we want to put aid down there, we ought to just do it by ourselves instead of relying on them.
I just want to put on record that you are speaking about UNRWA, which is the organization that helps Palestinian refugees, and not about the UN as a whole. We know there have been these accusations against UNRWA that haven't yet been substantiated with critical evidence from Israel. But I just want to make sure that we state on record that's what you're talking about here. Congressman, just one last question. What do you want to see the Biden administration do here?
I think we need to step out of the way and let Israel do their business, ma'am. This is they've been attacked, and the president is just yielding once again to the far left portion of the Democrat Party, which unfortunately is becoming the majority pretty much. Israel was attacked brutally. Women were raped. Children were murdered. I saw the video that Hamas put out was bragging about it. We need to let them do their business. And that's why they don't want American troops on the ground, because we got Americans killed in Afghanistan because of our rules of engagement.
Congressman, always good to have you on BBC News. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.